the right place or not. We might have to move around a bit. What do you think? You see one glacier there.
Very graphically or vividly see the effects of glaciation, especially on the right-hand or starboard side of the ship. You're going to see those distinctive U-shaped valleys that are the result of glaciers that have long since retreated from the land. But if you look at the colors of this landscape, it tells you that our very brief summer is coming to an end. So you can see those beautiful amber shades, and quite often that is going to be some of the grasses and ground cover that begins to change color with the advancing of the winter
sea otters
season.
float by.
In the upper elevations, quite often the beautiful scarlet colors will be the result of fireweed in the berry patches. So the bears this time of year have often retreated high into the mountains to forage among the berries and get a last meal before going down for their long winter hibernation.
That's the kind of glacier I hiked up.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's the one I'm used to, the ones that are slanted like that.
Looks like there's a sea otter right there.
Is it? Yeah, it is.
But I can't seem to get it on tape.
Then I can get it over.
I can't seem to find it on tape.
Prince William Sound itself lies at the apex of the bend in the North American coastline, and this is where the Arctic to the south, or to the north, and the Aleutians to the west, and the inside passage to the south all intersect. But this place contains the greatest concentration of tidewater or ice-calving glaciers in Alaska. The Chugach and Kenai Mountain glaciers have cut more than 40 fjords with the margin to the south, one third of which contain its 17 active tidewater glaciers. Prince William Sound is encircled. I can see some intrepid passengers out on deck 11, and they're wearing their coats, and so that tells me that it's a little bit chilly out there, so it is 48 degrees Fahrenheit. We are sailing into the wind, and these cold winds are emanating off of the beautiful glaciers that you see immediately ahead of us.
College Fjord is, we're almost there.
If you are looking out at the surface of the water on the right-hand side, you can see a very distinct line where the water appears lighter, and then this area appears a little darker. And so a lot of that flow is the result of the freshwater outflow from the Amherst Glacier in the Calk Hill River watershed area. And so this is where freshwater abruptly collides with the incoming saltwater, with the
Yeah, that is
incoming
cool.
tide.
You can see it on the camera.
Treating glaciers
Amherst
always flowing
Glacier.
downhill under the force of gravity.
See the rocks there on top are there because of the rock slides.
If you're looking out immediately to the right, you can see a tiny piece of floating ice, and there is life on that little icy island. And so that is a sea otter that hauled out on the ice. Let me see if he's still there. No, he just swam off.
Oh, he did.
But again, that was a sea otter, and it's not uncommon to see these sea otters floating on these little islands of ice within this area. The sea otters give birth to their
There's a sea
pups in
otter
the
right
latter
there.
part of May, and they're not weaned until approximately 8 months. So it's not uncommon, especially in the early parts of the summer, to see these mothers with their babies nibbling on their bellies. But sometimes they'll deposit them on the ice as they go down and forage for the abundance of bivalves that are in the bottom of the sea in this area.
He was sitting on that piece of ice right there.
And looking out to the right, I can see a few more of these sea otters, and quite often you can distinguish them. Not only do they look like little black specks on the water, but quite often you'll be able to see a wake, and that means that's a living animal rather than a piece of some of the darker ice that's floating out with the tide.
You get the camera?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know you could Pull this out?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
if you
Yep.
Now looking in that same direction beyond the amps, you're going to be able to see the layers of what is known as fern. And fern is the snow that does not melt during the summer months and it begins to accumulate year after year. It takes approximately 10 years before the fern begins to metamorphose to what is now known as glacial ice. So we do have tremendous windstorms, and sometimes the origin of those winds can be as far away as Mongolia. It can completely obliterate the side of the mountain with an entire layer of dust. And then when successive snow layers fall, you can count those layers again with binoculars, like the layers in a cake.
This is the Harvard Glacier that we're coming up to. It's one of the larger ones. It's beautiful. You can see the reflection of everything in the water because the water's so still. Because we have beautiful weather.
On the eastern slope, and that would be the right-hand side of the ship, and named after the men's colleges. Whereas those on the eastern slope, these would be the glaciers you're going to experience today. These were small and obscure little glaciers. Therefore, those were named after the women's colleges.
Yeah.
This is when Mother Nature had her just revenge because the planet began to warm. And so the elevation for the glaciers to form at that time was 3,000 feet. It was much
There's a
too
sea
cold
otter right
for
there
that
on the
ice field at an elevation of 7,000 feet. So very, very slow in that area.
Like you can look behind me.
As the planet continued to warm,
We have a new battery in there? Do we have another battery?
Yeah, I'll get one.
And so at that time,
We don't need it yet because we
glaciers
need
began
it
to fall
low.
in the lower elevations that led the glaciers that were named after the men's colleges, whereas those that represented the women's colleges on the eastern
get the
slope
field glass
eastern
out and find
began
out.
the dominant glaciers,
I've got it
receiving
zoomed
larger
in,
amounts
but-
of the snowfall. So that would be the first glacier would be the Dawson,
Yeah, it is.
followed by the
It's a sea
Grand
otter?
Glacier, then Montana, and then the Seward
Just laying
Glacier.
on them.
And the advance of the Harvard Glacier, which is the
Hitching a
only
ride.
advancing glacier in this
It's
area,
funny, it's like
is
this
due to
little-
the increased weight of the Radcliffe Glacier that you can see visible to the left, and it's determined
like little icebergs
by
all over the
what
place.
is known as medial moraine, and those are the dark streaks in the very central portion of the Harvard Glacier. So as I said, Mother Nature had her just revenge, and so today, Colony, along its eastern margin,
He's on his back,
overhanging
look.
Ernest
I know
Abbott
you
across
can't
the
pick it up
western
with the
half
camera,
of its
man. There it
terminus.
is.
Wow, that was cool.
It was in 1909 that the Radcliffe
I see,
Glacier
that was
barely
good.
joined the Harvard, and part of Harvard's advance might be attributable to an increased flow from the Radcliffe
Another sea
Glacier.
otter.
So between 1899 and 1986,
Did you get the reflection? Look at the mountain there.
Alan and I are just stunned with the beauty, the reflection of the mountains off the water. The lady was just saying that it's never this still here usually. Prince William is known for storms and wind, and especially in the afternoon. And I mean, we're just blown away right now with the reflection on the water. Definitely feel very blessed with the weather that we've had. Although we must admit, we're a bit cold right now.
Yes, we are.
It's like 45 degrees out here.
Uh-huh.
We could be indoors, but we're gonna get better pictures and video.
I'd
And
much rather be out here.
we're
Away from the Italian music.
we're there. Yeah. Figaro.
Figaro. It's not even an American. I don't know why they got.
No,
you can't understand
it's something
what they're
like
saying.
Italian or I don't know, French, some language we don't know what they're saying.
Oh, and did you see we just saw the Yale
Yeah.
glacier?
So what we thought the glacier we've been videotaping saying it's the Harvard was really the Yale one. The Harvard one is the big one coming up, which we haven't seen.
From the left to the right. So now there's just barely
Over
a
on the
trickle.
other side, we
If
went to the
you're
other
looking
side of
in
the boat
margin
and caught up on some of the
Bryn Mawr
glaciers
Glacier,
we've been
you can
missing
see
there.
barely a trickle of that waterfall.
You can see with the
coming in
sun.
from the very base and from underneath the Bryn Mawr Glacier.
That's a good one right there.
Yeah.
But this is the same glacier that our pilot, who's up here on the bridge today, named his daughter after. When he traveled into this area long before, he knew it was going to be
Blue
one
eyes.
of these cruise ships. The Bryn Mawr Glacier is also a valley glacier descending again from a cirque, and its distance from Whittier is 45 nautical miles. So once again, we've traveled 2 more nautical miles as we continue to advance toward the Harvard Glacier. And the length of that icy tongue is 5 miles, and it's formed by 2 tributaries which unite about 1 mile above tide water.
Holy cow.
But if you're looking in the central portion of the Bryn Mawr Glacier, you can see that dark streak, and that is known as medial moraine, because water, even in its solid state, will still flow to the lowest point. So it began to flow around that arete, and that's that rocky outcropping, and then unite about 1 mile above tide water, and trapping a portion of
So we're on the other side of the ship right now. And these are the women's glaciers. Yale and Harvard, those were the men's glaciers, and I guess there's about 6 glaciers that were named after women's colleges. I can't remember the names of them.
I see a rainbow right there.
Oh, yeah.
See that? Isn't that so?
I don't know if I can catch that. Alan just saw a rainbow.
It's not even raining.
I know, it's really bizarre.
What's going on here?
The weather that we're having is really weird. And we wouldn't know that except everyone keeps telling us that it's really bizarre. Yeah, I see it too.
I was seeing things there
No,
for a second.
there's a rainbow in the sky, although I don't think I can get to it. We never would dream that we needed to have our sunglasses. This is the Harvard Glacier. It's the big
It
one
was in
in front of the ship.
1986 that the snow was
We're working on
beginning
trying to get the
fall.
best view
The
of
snow
it.
hit 4,000 feet and then falling to return the Wellesley, Bryn Mawr, Smith, and Vassar glaciers, originating cirques between 4,000 and 5,000 feet, and so those glaciers
Okay, up here
are
we can
beginning
see
to
Yeah,
originate
that's right.
in the tidewater area.
We keep finding better views.
The very beginnings of that retreat can be seen again in the Smith Glacier.
Looks like we're.
You can see how the
There's nowhere to go, doesn't it?
I can't decide which way the boat's going to turn.
Flow, they still have an inward flowing current, as many a native
Harvard Glacier.
Nanda Badarka has discovered when he was finally sucked underneath this glacial ice. You can always tell the places that have calved off most recently because they'll be very, very vivid blue, only recently exposed to the erosive effects of the sunlight and the wind. The areas that have lies 2 nautical miles distant from the Vassar Glacier, and the Vassar Glacier is 47 nautical miles from Whittier. So the Harvard Glacier is 1 1/2 miles across. And our pilot up here today, remember these have not been documented since 1986, so he pulled out the sextant and we took a reading. And so we know the height of that icy cliff is 276 feet above the surface of the water. And if you could look at the chart, you would know that it plunges another 400 feet beneath the surface. Is the dark striations in the very central portion of this glacier. And a glacier, think in terms of the heel of your hand moving down the side of the mountain So it's always going to be pushing rock and debris, not only before it, but to either side. So when the Ratcliffe Glacier, and you can see the flow of the Ratcliffe Glacier emanating from the left, as it began to unite with the Harbor Glacier, that was the year 1909, the rock and debris was trapped in the central portion of glacial ice. So what is specifically the Harbor Glacier would be just to the left of center and then moving over to the right, and then that very white river onto the left would be the increased flow of the Ratcliffe Glacier. And again, there are microclimates associated with glaciers, and this is because of their cold temperatures, along with local high-pressure systems that form over the glaciers. While the adjacent sound with its warmer water tends to have a lower pressure over it. And the difference in pressure causes. So as the glaciers continue to move over uneven ground, they begin to splinter at the surface. And as they calve into the water, when the ice begins to separate from the larger glacier, some of that gas is released under explosive force, again being released under 1,000 pounds of pressure. And when Captain George Vancouver sailed into the area and he heard those large cracking sounds, that white thunder, he knew it was on the ring of being right at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. They're always a solid river of ice on top of a liquid river that acts as a bit of a lubricant and allows these glaciers to move much more quickly down the side of the mountain than the colder glaciers associated with Greenland or Antarctica. So these glaciers are an ongoing source of fresh water. In fact, 3/4 of the fresh water on Earth is contained within glacial ice. And by simply looking at some of these bergs, you can tell which portion of the glacier that they did come off of. And so I'm looking at the one immediately to the right. You can see it's heavily laden with rock and debris, and that tells you it came from the very base of this glacier. And then some of those that still retain that deep blue color are all.
We just keep floating closer and closer. Keep hoping to see some calving, but so far we haven't seen any yet.
Using my binoculars, I was looking for some of the harbor seals, and they are out there. So just a handful today, but look in the brash ice that is on the left margin of the glacier, and look at some of the low.
The lady just said that the glacier is 276 feet tall. So we're looking at a 27-story building at this point. It doesn't seem like it because there's nothing there to contrast it. Because it's so clear and steady today, we were able to get really close to it. Yep. There's some calving right there. Yeah. Yeah. Made a loud noise. I'm not sure we'll see it on that.
It sounded like thunder, didn't it?
Yeah, it sounded like thunder on the videotape. I don't know if you're able to see it.
I guess you sing the picture of the sun really loud on top of a big chunk of ice.
I can tell you right now, I'm cold. Yeah.
Sounds like thunder, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. The lady says it sounds like thunder, but it's really just farting. There's some more calving. Sounds like a thunderstorm. My hand's about to freeze off.
Did you get that?
Kinda. I mean, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it or not.
You can hear it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
As you can see, Captain Pomada is going to pivot the ship. He's going to give everyone a beautiful view on the right-hand or starboard side of the Harbor Glacier. So if this is your first view, remember this glacier is 1.5 miles across, that icy face 276 feet above the surface of the water.
Oh, the battery's almost dead.
And again, I'm looking at the trees. This is where
Yep.
the bears. So you can see the dominant trees, and then it gets into the red areas. And then you start seeing intense patches of dark green. I'm looking above that, and there's going to be a very intense little black dot, and that's a little black bear. Now again, you'd need binoculars to see this, but I can see some of you do have very nice binoculars. So now I'm going to try and find it again without my binoculars. So I'm looking at all the green trees, then get up in the scarlet areas, so it's just slightly to the right of 12 o'clock. And if I'm looking almost to the top of the mountain, you can see some of the lighter green trees that are well up above that, the majority of the tree line, and then several dark patches. So it's just above those dark patches and just slightly to the right of those dark patches. Those are the bears in the upper
Yeah.
elevations, and they're after some of the berries. They bloom late in the summer. And I did spot actually a few more of them, so we do have an abundance of black bears up there, so I was trying to pinpoint that one, but there are several of them up there. So again, get up in those scarlet areas and be scanning and looking for some of
Pretty
those
good
intensely
calving
black
there.
dots, and when they move, you spotted a black bear.
Yeah, that one. You find the bear?
Nope.
Oh.
I can't see. I think it's yet to be up farther south.
I don't think so. I think it's just right up there.
I thought she said 12 o'clock. Did you take a picture of it?
No.
Oh, the video?
Yep, video. Sounds like a thunderstorm.
Hmm. Oh, big one. You see that?
Yep. Missed that one.
Look at the big wave from it. Man. Oh.
I just don't know how these are showing up on video.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look at that tidal wave coming from it. That's pretty crazy.
It's like a gun shot, isn't it?
Yeah.
visually acute because it's their job to spot anything on the
I
surface
got that
of the
one on
water
video.
we might
See
not
that one?
already see.
Yep.
Oh.
Looking quickly, that was 5 bears up there, but against some tremendous calving on the face of the Harbor Glacier.
I got that one.
Look at the wave.
Look at that tidal wave. That tells you of the immense power of these glaciers when they plummet into the water. And that brings me to some of the kayakers in the area, because I've mentioned those bears up there, and this is a wilderness area. And so that means these bears might have never been exposed to a human being, and so bears being very intelligent, very curious. It could be the sight of, for instance, a pup tent or a kayak hauled out onto the land that could bring a bear right into your camp. So it is very important when you are kayaking
That
in the
was
area to
cool.
pull that kayak well up
I
onto the
definitely got
land.
that one.
Because you can see these tidal waves that can emanate from these bergs that calve into the water that could sweep that kayak out to sea. Because this area is so very remote, it might mean several days before anyone would know that you're here, except of course for the bears.
Oh, there goes the little
Yeah.
one. Oh, right there.
We're starting to rock now because of the
Yeah.
waves of
you
the
can see it,
calving. Yeah. You can see how big it was. You can see the pieces of ice that fell in right there.
We're going to give you a distance or a size reference. Again, we are 1/2 nautical mile from the face of the Harbor Glacier.
Man, that's amazing. The boat is rocking right now
Mhm.
from the waves of those ice. That ice pond in there. That's something else.
Again, the tremendous force of these bergs when they calve into the water, you can feel that the waves rocking the entire Coral Princess. So, despite the size of our ship, they're no match for a river of ice.
Would have been cool if we got a calving in there.
That's being nice to take some pictures.
The height of the mountains in this area is between 5,000 and 6,000 feet. And that would, of course, be on the western margin. That's what is now on the left-hand port side of the ship, whereas the height of the mountains on the right-hand or starboard side is much lower, about 3,000 feet. Solid sheet of ice that extended over the bays and the mountains. And one day, native hunters were kayaking along the Pacific Ocean when one man cried out, "Chuga chuga," which means hurry, hurry. This We see what that black thing is.
Yep, you're on.
Are we on now?
Oh, that went off focus. Doggone it. I'll get your food here. We got steak again. Beth did too.
After freezing and watching the glaciers, we went and swam in the hot tub.
Now we're all relaxed.
It's a rough life.
Tonight's the American theme night. It's not showing up too well. There's the flag and the balloons. Oh, there it goes.
Like this one,
Big back.
Sure. Okay. Enjoy your dessert.
Oh.
Alright, there you go. You're in focus now. It's mine. It's a vanilla ice cream sundae with caramel chocolate. And Beth's got. What'd you get, Beth?
Chocolate and white chocolate and dark chocolate mousse with some raspberry sauce on the side. Our last dessert.
Alright. Looks fancy.
I know, it's way too fancy for us. That's good. It's very rich.
Like I'm watching you eat. It's showing up now. Oh, there's getting blurry again.
Hi, Alan.
Hi. Good morning.
It's our last morning. We're disembarking. Our last breakfast.
Missed the food, aren't we?
Yes. Alan said he's going to start cooking like this.
I'm not used to eating this much for breakfast.
No, we're not used to eating this much food at all. I don't think we're going to eat for a week.
Sticking to the scrambled eggs and the hash browns.
Scrambled eggs and hash browns and fruit. I got scrambled eggs, some bacon, and some bread and fruit. This is the front of the ship. You can't really see. Oh, well, it's pretty blurry again. We're here. It's 6:20 Alaskan time in the morning. We're disembarking the ship in an hour, about 7:30. So we're all packed and ready to go, and we're just gonna sit here and enjoy our last meal for a while.
Grab for 8.
There goes our.
So it's pretty
There you go, right there. That's it. Say goodbye. We're on a bus now at the airport.
Yeah. Usually by 7 o'clock, we've got 40 buses sitting out there.
Of course, the guy said this is one of the pretty days we've had in Whittier in a long, long time. Typical of what we've heard this week, right?
Yeah.
We're running a little behind. He said the tunnel broke.
The train broke.
The
So
train
once we
broke.
clear the tunnel and we're on the other side of the mountain, it's about an hour and 15-minute drive up to Anchorage. We'll be scooting right directly to the airport. In 1940, this was a railroad spur, and Whittier was a Army seaport. And up until the year 2000, the only way in and out of Whittier was by rail. If you wanted to bring your car or truck, or when the motor coaches are loaded
We're gonna enter
with
into
passengers, we have
2.5
priority.
mile one-way tunnel.
So you may notice that there is a lane light that opens up, and then also there's a metering light. And the metering light spaces everybody out through the tunnel, and they'll actually space the motor coaches out about a quarter of a mile apart. And the reason for that is because that's about the same distance as the safe houses in the tunnel. There's 8 safe houses throughout the tunnel, and they're separated about a quarter of a mile inside the tunnel, so they separate the coaches. And there's just enough room for about a half a bus load. Yeah. Who runs faster? No, about 50 people. Just do what I do. Close your eyes. It's a very stable mountain here. Its way in and kind of destroyed those trees, and that was a result of the 64 earthquake. This area dropped about 10 to 12 feet and allowed high tide to rush in, and trees soaked up the salt water and killed off a lot of the trees in this area. So we'll see quite a few of that, those areas all the way up the arm here. So this is the Turnagain Arm. It is a glacial fjord, an arm of the ocean. It was created by the Portage Glacier and Portage ice fields. It has 2 high tides a day and 2 low tides. And the average depth of the water out there is between 6 feet and 50 feet deep.
The trees are changing color. Look at that. Unbelievable.
We keep seeing doll sheep here. There's one right up on the
We have some good wildlife.
Oh, yeah, I can see that bass. Keep seeing doll sheep.
I didn't see their horns.
Haven't gotten any on video yet. We're here on one of those few days where you can actually see Mount McKinley, but I don't think you can pick it up on a video camera.
So we're number 4 in line. They're unloading 2 coaches up there now. So kind of make a little slow loop here. I hate to go all the way out to the bluff and get out of line here, so to just drag our feet along the river, the lake here.
Oh well, we'll have plenty of time to try and do it ourselves. Oh, we're in our rental car. Alan's driving, and he's got a Mountain Dew he's drinking, and so am I actually, so that's going to make us feel a little bit better. We're driving north. It's a beautiful sunny day in Anchorage. We're seeing if we can catch a glimpse of Mount McKinley again. So we're going to drive north for a little while. We've got mountains in front of us. Actually, mountains really all around us. You're going to want to stay on this highway. I believe this is the only highway that goes north.
Well, I noticed that's called Mountain Dew Drive. I'm like,
Yeah.
wonder why it's called that. I see McDonald's over there.
You want to stop off at McDonald's? I know that's your favorite place to eat.
Heck no.
I know you love it. Come
I just had a
on.
Milky Way bar. That's probably more nutritious than McDonald's.
You love McDonald's. We're driving north right now. Just look at these trees, the beautiful colors. Alan and I couldn't have come at a better time. We're starting to change. Timing sure did work out for everything on this trip. It's kind of cool too when we go home. We're gonna be like going back in time because there's no color change back there.
It's like summer.
It's like we've both been able to enjoy our favorite season early. Wow, look at that. Look how gorgeous that is.
see in the windshield, it's like obstructing the view of the camera.
This is our rental car. Alan loves the color. He thinks it's really snazzy. Kind of small. This is the fjord here in Anchorage. And the fjord is what with an
It's where the glacier carved out, and then it melted. It retreated back into the valley that was left.
so this is where the glacier was at. It carved it out of the land, and then the glacier retreated and melted, and this is what's left. And this is just a bunch of, they called it silt, didn't they? And they tried to build a highway here or a bridge of some type, but they drilled 200, I think it was 200 feet down, and they couldn't find any sturdy ground, so they can't build on this at all. There's a bald eagle. Yeah. Yep. Bald eagle just keeps flying out. We'll hopefully see more. Hill Park, and they give some pretty good instructions about not having a bad bear day. This is the park we're heading into. I'm going to try and zoom in. There's two white sheep. What do they call that?
Doll sheep.
Doll sheep. Let me see if I can zoom in on them. I seem to have lost them now. I don't think I can find them on the camera. Alan can see them with the field glasses pretty good. They keep getting lost in the zoom.
Keep moving around. And I remember that guy said they travel in twos, so
Yeah.
that's definitely sheep.
Yep, that's definitely them, but can't see them very well. We're going to take a walk and see what we see. Right?
Yep.